Continue reading Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 37, part 2. It is only those fetid souls who are excessively addicted to orderliness that are devoid of the devotional eye. Of them, some are enmeshed by the variegatedness of the deluding energy, while others aspire after self-annihilation under the influence of centrifugal knowledge. Though they might have a view of the mundanely manifested pastimes of the Supreme Lord, they can have only a material conception of those visible pastimes. This conception being devoid of transcendental reality, hence the realization of Goloka appears in proportion to eligibility due to the degree of one's self-realization. The underlying principle is this, that though Gokula is as holy as free from dross as Goloka, still it is manifested on the mundane plane by the influence of the Chit potency Yogamaya. In visible and non-visible matters of transcendental regions, there is no impurity, contamination, and imperfection inherent in the world of limitation. Only there is some difference in the matter of realization in proportion to the self-realization of the seekers after the absolute. Impurity, unwholesomeness, foreign elements, illusion, nescience, unholiness, utter inadequacy, significance, grossness, these pertain to the eye, intellectual, mind, and ego, stultified by the material nature of conditioned souls. They have nothing to do with the essential nature of transcendence. The more one is free from these blots, the more one is capable of realizing the unqualified absolute. The truth who has been revealed by the scriptures is free from dross, but the realization of the seekers of the knowledge of these realities are with or without a flaw in accordance with the degree of their individual realization. Those 64 arts that have been enumerated above do in reality exist untintedly only in Goloka. Unwholesomeness, insignificance, grossness are found in those arts in accordance with the degree of self-realization on the part of aspirants after the knowledge of the Absolute. According to Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatan, all those pastimes that have been visible in Gokula exist in all purity and free from all tinge of limitation in Goloka. So transcendental autocratic Paramoship also exists in Goloka in inconceivable purity, judged by the same standard and reasoning. All manifestation by the Chit potency Yogamaya are pure, so as the above Paramoship is the creation of Yogamaya, it is necessarily free from all contamination and pertains to the absolute reality. Let us pause to consider what the absolute reality is in himself. Srila Rupa Goswami says, Purvokta Sarata. In regard to these slokas, Sripad Jiva Goswami, after mature deliberation, has established the transcendental Paramaship as Vipramahavilas, something seemingly different from what it appears to be. Such are the pastimes of birth, etc., accomplished by Yoga Maya. By the explanation, Tathapi Vraja Vanitanam, Srila Jiva Goswami has expressed his profound implication, joyous pastimes by the medium of seeming error. Viprama Vilas as the contrivance of Yoga Maya has also been admitted in the concluding statements of Rupa and Sanatana. Still, since Sripad Jiva Goswami has established the identity of Goloka with Gokula, it must be admitted that there is transcendental reality underlying all the pastimes of Gokula. A husband is one who binds oneself in wedlock with a girl, while a Parama is one who, in order to win another's wife's love by means of love, crosses the conventions of morality by the impulse of the sentiment that regards her love as the be-all and end-all of existence. In Goloka, there is no such function at all as that of the nuptial relationship. Hence, there is no husbandhood characterized by such connection. On the other hand, since the gopis who are self-supported or real entities are not tied to anybody else in wedlock, they cannot also have the state of concubinage. There can be also no separate entities in the forms of Swakya conjugal and Parakya adulterous status. In the visible pastimes of the mundane plane, the function in the form of the nuptial relationship is found to exist. Krishna is beyond the scope of that function, hence the said function of the circle of all love is contrived by the Yoga Maya. Krishna tastes the transcendental ras akin to Paramaship by overstepping that function. This pastime is going beyond the pale of the apparent moral function manifested by Yoga Maya, is however also observable only on the mundane plane by the eye that is enwrapped by the mundane covering, but there is really no such a levity in the pastimes of Krishna. The ras of Paramaship is certainly the extracted essence of all the rasas. If it be said that it does not exist in Goloka, it would be highly deprecatory to Goloka. It is not the fact that there is no supremely wholesome tasting of ras in the supremely excellent realm of Goloka. Krishna, the fountainhead of all avatars, tastes the same in a distinct form in Goloka and in another distinct form in Gokula. Therefore, in spite of the seeming appearance to the mundane eye of outstepping the bounds of the legitimate function by the form of Paramaship, there must be present the truth of it in some form even in Goloka. Atma aramo api ariramat atmani avaruddha sauratta reme vraja sundaribhir yathar bhakka pratibimba viprama. And other texts of the scriptures go to show that self-delightedness is the essential distinctive quality of Krishna himself. Krishna in his majestic Chit realm causes the manifestation of his own Chit potency as Lakshmi and enjoys her as his own wedded consort. As this feeling of wedded consorthood preponderates, their ras expands in a wholesome form only up to the state of seventhhood, Dasya ras. But in Goloka, he divides up his Chit potency into thousands of gopis and eternally engages in amorous pastimes with them by forgetting the sentiments of ownership. By the sentiments of ownership, there cannot be the extreme inaccessibility of the ras. So the gopis have naturally from eternity the innate sentiment of being others' wedded wives. Krishna too, in response to that sentiment, by assuming the reciprocal sentiment of Paramaship, performs the ras and the other amorous pastimes with the aid of the flute. His favorite Char army, Goloka, is the transcendental seat of eternally self-realized ras. Beyond limited conception, hence in Goloka there is realization of the sentimental assumption of the ras of Paramaship. Again, such is the nature of the principle of the majesty that in the realm of Vaikuntha there is no ras of parental affection towards the source of all avatars, but in Goloka, the seat of all super-excellent deliciousness, there is no more than the original sentimental egoistic assumption of the same ras. There Nanda and Yashoda are visibly present, but there is no occurrence of birth. For want of the occurrence of birth, the assumed egoistic sentiment of parental affection of Nanda and Yashoda has no foundation in the actual existence of such entities as father and mother, but it is of the nature of sentimental assumption on their parts. Jayati Jana Nivaso Devaki Janma Vadha, etc. For the purpose of the realization of the ras, the assumed egoistic sentiment is, however, eternal in the ras of amorous love, if the corresponding egoistic sentiments of concubinage and paramourship be mere eternal assumptions. There is nothing to blame in them, and it also does not go against the scriptures. When those transcendental entities of Goloka become manifest in Vraja, then those two egoistic sentiments become somewhat more palpable to the mundane view in the phenomenal world, and there comes to be this much difference only. In the ras of parental affection, the sentiments of Nanda and Yashoda that they are parents becomes manifest in the more tangible form in the pastimes of birth, etc. And in the amorous ras, the corresponding sentiments of concubinage in the respective gopis become manifest in the forms of their marriages with Abhimanyu, Govardhan, etc. In reality, there is no such separate entity as husbandhood of the gopis either in Goloka or in Gokula. Hence, the Shastras declare that there is no sexual union of the gopis with their husbands. It is also for the same reason that the authorized teacher of the principle of ras, Sri Rupa, writes that in the transcendental amorous ras, the hero is of two different types, viz., the wedded husband and the paramapatis. Chopapatis Cheti Pravedda Iha Vishruti Iti Sri Jiva. In his commentary by his words, Patipura Vanitanam Dvitya Vraja Vanitanam acknowledges the eternal paramourship of Krishna in Goloka and Gokula and the husbandhood of Krishna in Vaikuntha and Dwarka, etc. in the Lord of Goloka and the Lord of Gokula. The character of paramourship is found in its complete form. Krishna's deliberate overstepping of his own quality of self-delightedness is caused by the desire of union with another's wedded wife. The state of being another's wedded wife is nothing but the corresponding assumed sentiment on the part of the gopis. The reality they have no husbands with independent and separate existence. Still, their very egoistic sentiment makes them have the nature of the wedded wives of others. So all the characteristics of viz. that desire makes the Paramama overstep the bounds of duty, etc., are eternally present in the seat of all deliciousness. In Vraja, that very thing reveals itself to an extent in a form more tangible to persons with mundane eyes. So in Goloka, there is inconceivable distinction and non-distinction between the rasas analogous to mundane concubineship and wifehood. It may be said that equal truth there is no distinction in Goloka between the two, as also that there is such distinction. The essence of Paramaship is the cessation of ownership, and the obeyance of ownership is the enjoyment of his own chit potency in the shape of abeyance of Paramaship, or enjoyment without the sanction of wedlock. The conjunction of the two exists there as one ras accommodating both varieties. In Gokula, it is really the same, with the difference that It produces a different impression on observers belonging to the mundane plane. In Govinda, the hero of Goloka, there exists both husbandhood and paramaship, above all piety and impiety, and free from all grossness. Such is also the case with the hero of Gokula, although there is a distinction in realization caused by Yogamaya. If it be urged that what is manifested by Yogamaya is the highest truth, being the creation of the Chit potency, and that, therefore, the impression of Paramaship is also really true, the reply is that there may exist an impression of analogous sentimental egoism in the tasting of ras, free from any offense, because it is not without a basis in truth. But the unwholesome impression that is produced in the mundane judgment is offensive, and as such cannot exist in the pure Chit realm. The fact Sripad Jiva Goswami has come to the true conclusion, and at the same time the finding of the opposing party is also inconceivably true. It is the vain empirical wranglings about wedded wifehood and concubinage, which is false and full of specious verbosity. He who goes through the commentaries of Sripad Jiva Goswami and those of the opposing party with an impartial judgment cannot maintain his attitude of protest endangered by any real doubt. What the unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Lord says in all true and is independent of any consideration of unwholesome pros and cons. There is, however, the element of mystery in their verbal controversies. Those whose judgment is made of mundane stuff, being unable to enter into the spirit of all loving controversies among pure devotees due to their own want of unalloyed devotion, are apt to impute to the devotees their own defects of partisanship and opposing views. Commenting on the sloka of Ras Panchadhyaya Gopinam Tat Patinam Cha, etc., what Sripad Sanatan Goswami has stated conclusively in his Vaishnava Tosani has been accepted with reverence by the true devotee Sripad Vishwanath Chakravarti without any protest. Whenever any dispute arises regarding the pure cognitive pastimes such as Goloka, etc., we would do well to remember the precious advice from the holy lips of Sriman Mahaprabhu and his associates. The Goswamis wish that the truth absolute is ever characterized by the spiritual variegatedness that transcends the variegatedness of mundane phenomena. But he is never featureless. He is never featureless. The divine Ras is lovely with the variegatedness of the fourfold distinction of Vaibhava, Anubhava, Satvika and Vyabhachari. And the Ras is ever present in Goloka and Vaikuntha. The Ras of Goloka manifests as a Vraja Ras on the mundane plane for the benefit of the devotees by the power of Yogamaya. Whatever is observable in Gokula Ras should be visible in Goloka Ras in a clearly explicit form. Hence the distinction of Paramaship and concubinage, the variegatedness of the respective rasas of all different persons, the soil, the water, the river, the hill, the portico, Habova, cows, etc. are the features of Gokula, exist in Goloka, disposed in an appropriate manner. There is only this peculiarity, that the mundane conception of human beings possessed of material judgment regarding those transcendental entities do not exist there. The conception of Goloka manifests itself differently in proportion to the degree of realization of the various pastimes of Vraja, and it is very difficult to lay down any definite criterion as to which portions are mundane and which are uncontaminated. The more the eye of devotion is tinged with the self of love, the more will the transcendental concept gradually manifest itself. So there is no need of further hypothetical speculation, which does not improve one's spiritual appreciation, as the substantive knowledge of Goloka is an inconceivable entity. To try to pursue the inconceivable by the conceptual process is like pounding the empty husk of grain, which is sure to have a fruitless ending. It is therefore one's bounden duty, by refraining from the endeavor to know, to try to gain the experience of the transcendental by the practice of pure devotion, any cause the adoption of which tends to produce the impression of featurelessness must be shunned by all means. Unalloyed parakya ras, free from all mundane conception, is a most rare attainment. It is this which has been described in the narrative of the pastimes of Gokula. Those devotees who follow the dictate of their pure, spontaneous love should base their devotional endeavors on that narrative. They will attain to the more wholesome fundamental principle on reaching the stage of realization. The devotional activity is characterized by illicit amava, as practiced by worldly minded conditioned souls, are forbidden mundane impiety. The heart of our apostle Sripad Jiva Goswami was very much moved by such practices and induced him to give us his conclusion statements on the subject. It is the duty of a pure Vaishnava to accept the real spirit of his statements. It is a great offense to disrespect the Acharya and to seek to establish a different doctrine in opposition to him.